Welcome back everyone to Piney Plays the Scholar, and today we are wishing to avenge Arvathal's alleged death because his father is of course mourning for him, and we are sending out battle shouts in order to make it all clear. And we need to kill some goblins, which we've already met our quota there. Find some flasks of wine, which we apparently just picked up one there. Now, one of the things I did is I turned off experience because I was getting up to be too high a level too quickly, so I thought I should at least moderate my experience. And I'm not going into any rules to say what level I need to be, but I figure highest level goblin here is 9, so I might as well stay at 9 for now. I also need to pick some grapes because we are showing our wrath as we're picking up grapes. So therefore we are having the wrath of grapes. Yeah. Alright. Maybe I should go back to talking about language. And I realized that in all this talk about language, I did miss one fundamental question. What's language? Really? You'll think that with everything else we've been talking about, that would be the first thing you'd want to answer. Where is that? Oh, that was weird. Yes, what is language? You would think everybody will know that. Yeah. If you're looking for the elf prince, you're too late. The dwarves have him now. Alright. Well, that must have been the boss then. Now we come to another question there. In addition to what is languages, how did I understand what that goblin just said? Alright, first let's answer the question about what is language? Then we could ponder on that little question. Is that language, of course, in my mind, consists of 3 elements. And these 4 elements become a form of communication. Now, I should have started out with, it's a form of communication that has, in my mind, 3 elements. That, of course, means that there are other forms of communications that don't quite really form languages because they are more limited in scope in some way. Now, the first of these elements is a vocabulary. In other words, you have a large body of words, symbols, signs, something that in some way represents some sort of meaning. And each of these symbols represents maybe an idea, an item, an action. And yes, you also have some words that are purely functional. But the first set of words that you think of, the basis, are the ones that have some sort of meaning, either some idea or some sort of action involved with them. And so that's the first element, words. The second element that I find with language is grammar. Grammar is how these together. Now, sometimes grammar requires there to be modifications to words, sometimes some additional words whose pure function is to help form the framework of the language, and other aspects of grammar that could be word order and all the like. But it's the framework in which you put the words. So you have the words, you have the framework, which is your grammar, and those two together, of course, form the basis of what language is. But to me, the most important element on top of those 2 items is that it be very flexible, that you should be able to express anything that you're likely to run into in your environment. And we have to have a pretty broad definition of what environment is. We can't just say you live in this little box and that you have language. If you no, I don't mean anything as theoretical as that. I mean, in a broad sense, real world environment. Right. In the 14th century, they wouldn't have a word for telephone because telephones would not be part of their environment, for example. But as soon as it became part of the environment, a word was invented for it. So therefore, you have words that cover just about any situation you could talk about, because otherwise you won't have everyday speech, because it's to have an arbitrary large amount of communication. If it's very limited, it doesn't fall under what I would call a language. Now, sometimes they use it. For example, they call it programming languages and the like. And while programs can be arbitrary or large, there's a limited scope of what you can tell a computer to do within a programming language. So it's not purely a language, and it's hard to say what. Unfortunately, one of the things we don't have a word is, what do you call something like that? But let's speak with this elf and bring her back the wine.
Greetings to you.
Ah, very good. You have done all that I could ask. Thank you for your efforts. Those wicked creatures will learn better than to raid my wine cellars in the future. You mean the ones that are dead? Yeah, okay. Well, let's see. The trousers are not an improvement. They start you out with some decent equipment when you come out of the intro for the high elf, apparently.
Sweet-eyed Melon.
Ah, and I brought some grapes. Ah, very good. Years from now, your efforts today will bring great joy to many. Hard work brings satisfaction, not just in winemaking, but in all things. And we have some gloves, most likely, of course, already surpassed by the sample stuff.
Greetings, friend. Will you lend me your ear?
All filled and ready for delivery. I would like to thank you for your assistance in yellow, as I would not have been able to see this last bit of harvest along without you. This cask is meant for another, however. I should like to see it sent along with my friend Brigadour. It was he who sent it to me, after all. Why should he not have the finest wine in the valley? If you would, take this back to him to Keladim. Follow your path east and turn to... Yes, I know where Keladim is. Now, how she managed to do all that out in the middle of the open like this, I haven't the slightest idea. But as we head back, we can now... Well, fight this boar first. But go back to the question I asked a little bit earlier, and that is, how did we understand the goblin? So, well, we spoke a language, of course, right? That it was something that is not something that you would normally say to someone, but we had an arbitrarily large enough vocabulary that you're able to form a sentence such as that, right? Okay, no problem. Except that, why would the goblin and I have a common language at this point? Now, what language would the goblin have spoken? Well, let's see. Highly unlikely the goblin would speak in Quenya. I could just say for certain that the goblin did not speak in Quenya. Alright, fine. Didn't speak in Quenya. And it's highly unlikely the goblin will speak in Sindarin either. Alright, so that gets rid of two of the most likely languages that I would know. And as for the black speech, right, possibility, because I suspect that many members of goblin tribes will know that language. And that if I'm a scholar of sorts, then I might have studied the the black speech at some level or another, even if saying it isn't exactly on the top of my to-do list. But the black speech is not what I could call a very stable language. There is one point in The Lord of the Rings where you have two different tribes of orcs talking to each other, and Frodo and Sam were able to understand what they're saying. Why? How? Was because they were different tribes, and because they were different tribes, their dialects of black speech were so different from each other, they couldn't understand each other in the black speech. So what they do? They spoke to each other in Westron. So you got the idea there then that 3,000 years black speech would have changed as much as Westron did, maybe even worse. I needed to take that path up there, didn't I? So that's something to take into account, is that you're kidding me. Well, they did say that they changed the whistle for High Elves yesterday, and yeah, I think that qualifies as changing it. Very definitely qualifies as changing it. So therefore the black speech versions were complete. So therefore I have to assume then that the goblin spoke in Westron, because if they're out in areas where there are a lot of Westron speakers, or if they're mixed near another, apparently they use Westron as a common language, just as the free peoples do. Thank you, Sun Yellow, and thank my friend Bethwill for knowing my intentions. I understand that Brethilwyn was beset by goblins, and that you fought off many of them to abstain the spirit. Know that this was a full worthy cause. Yeah.
Greetings, friend. Will you lend me your ear?
Before you leave, I have one more boon to ask of you. I promised a bottle of last year's vintage to a friend at Dwayland into the north, and my labors kept me too busy to fulfill the pledge. I hope that has not inconvenienced her. Could you deliver this bottle to Dolenkiel for me? The refuge lies to the road that follows the river north beyond the vineyard. Yes, all right. If you reach the dwarf port to Keldu, you have traveled too far north. So therefore, if you see a lot of dwarves, you've gone the wrong way, or you've gone too far from it. But all right, let's go and take care of that. Do we have everything else we need? Oh, we still have to talk to Cardivore about his son. That the information I was just discussing, how I knew what was being said, is all right. So therefore, Eladon and Elro here must have taught me enough about Westron that I could be able to not only understand today's modern version of Westron, because I've been asleep for 3,000 years, but I'll be able to understand what a goblin was saying, who probably is speaking Westron with a bit of a black speech accent. Wow! Eladon and Elra here must be wonderful teachers. That's all I gotta say about that. Hello, Oh, that's probably not the best way to say it. Hello, Cardivore. It appears that they were taken by some dwarves.
Graze the shadow upon my heart.
What is this? Pomprish said that my son still lives? Alvartho was not slain? My heart wants me to believe, but believe the words of a goblin? Still, I cannot fathom why he would tell you this if it were not so. But if Alvartho was alive, then his capture does not bode well. I fear he will not live long while imprisoned by those outcast dwarves. They are no better than the goblins. Alright, and I'm sure that this might or fate? I guess fate.
Will you hear my sorrows?
Alright, let's hear them. Yes, you have done so much for me already, Sun Yellow, but there is still much that must be done if my son is to be restored. We have not had dealings with the dwarves for a very long time, and those are not pleasant memories. Have you heard of Skorgrim Dourhand's attack upon the old refuge of Athelion? Well, I slept through most of it, but Eladon and Elra here told me a few things about it. Yes, dwarves are scheming, self-serving, not to be trusted. We must gather our strength to lay siege to the dwarves of Eredluin and rescue Avarthal from their clutches. But only Dorgagur Whitethorn, the master of Dwelin, has the authority to muster such a force. Bring him the news of my son, and that he is alive, but a prisoner. We must strike at the dwarves before it is too late. Speak with Torridon at the stable before you go. He will hasten you upon your journey. Alright, so here is, how do you use a stable master? That's, I guess, the purpose of this one. In fact, they even unlock Dwelin for you, if I remember correctly.
How can I be of service?
You see here, Dwelin is already unlocked, and the rest are the auto unlocks because they're the starter ones. Hello there, Toron. How do I use this horse? No, that's not how you use horse. Alright, let's see.
Will you lend me your ear?
Long have my brother and I dwelt upon these shores, and much have we seen in this time. Now that the time has come for us to leave this place and sail into the west. My brother, however, does not see clearly, and he wishes to remain here. You realize who you're talking to? Someone who just decided to stay himself? Yes, we have always dwelt together, my brother and I could not consider a day in my life without his company and counsel. He is the cord which binds me to Middle-earth. While he is of a mind to remain, I am forced to wait for him. If you would, go to Dwelin and see if you could convince Bregar to join me in Keladim. It is time we begin our journey. A refuge is north along the road. Yeah, okay, so you want me, someone who's decided to stay, to go to your brother and convince him that it is time to leave. You know, that is not going to work out in any way. I'm just warning you, but alright, I'll humor you. That's right. I'll humor you, and
What can I do for you?
head over to Dwelin. Yippee. Now, well, still a bit stiff, I think, in the writing style, but maybe that's how high elves operate. But yes, easy enough to use a stable horse, I guess, and I don't have to worry about steering, which is the best advantage of it. But let's see what that leaves us now. That leaves us with all our quests up in the north. We could talk about the vigil and purifying areas. We need to deliver a bottle of wine. We need to rally up the elves in order to go against the dwarves. And we need to convince someone that he needs to leave Middle-earth, even though we're not willing to do it ourselves. What could be easier than that? Well, it can't be more difficult than my being able to figure out what a goblin is saying, despite the fact that I've been asleep for 3,000 years. Will I succeed as well in being able to undertake these tasks? We'll have to find that out in the next episode of Piney Plays the Scholar.